Hello my beautiful bookish friends, and welcome back to my channel. So today I am bringing you a long video. I'm sure even as I'm filming this I know it's going to be long, but today I wanted to bring you my fall reading wrap up. This is for the month of September, the month of October, and the month of November. So the fall was a really crazy time. I had 31 days of Halloween going on, so I was not able to do a September or October wrap up, and by that point I figured I would just do a fall seasonal wrap up for you guys. The first book I read in September was Delirium by Lauren Oliver. And this is a dystopian about the United States being taken over by a new regime that decides that love is basically the root of all evil. It's the root of depression. It's the root of people committing crimes. Everything that's bad happens has to deal with love. And so at 18 you get your ability to love removed. I was really excited for this book. It sounded very interesting. It was all about a girl who hasn't had her procedure yet and ends up meeting a boy and starts struggling with if she's really looking forward to this procedure anymore, and has the government lied their entire lives. So she gets involved in a rebellion, and they are basically trying to figure out in 95 days if she can run away or not, or if she wants to run away, or what she wants to do, while also coping with the death of her mother. So I had really high hopes for this book. It sounded interesting, it sounded different. I bought the whole series, and I was super disappointed with the first book. It took me a really long time to get through this, and that's part of the reason why I only read 3 books in September, because this was super slow. It was kind of like too much world building. It felt very repetitive, so I'm hoping the next book in the series is a little better, and the ending just didn't make me feel the way I wanted it to, so I gave this a 3.75. The book I read is Dead is a Killer Tune by Marlene Perez. This was the next book in the series, and I really liked this one. I gave it a 5 out of 5. We are still following Jessica, who is coming into her own as a woman warrior, as a Virgo, and just more creepy things are happening in Nightshade. I think this one, yeah, this one has to deal with the Pied Piper. If you don't know that sort of fairy tale and legend, that it's about like he plays the flute and then all the kids follow him. So it's about that, and it's a battle of the bands and how Jessica gets sucked into being in the band to help in the investigation. So it's a really good one. I think this one was one of the most suspenseful actually throughout the whole series, so yeah, I really enjoyed it. Next one I do not actually have the physical copy of anymore because I didn't like it enough to keep it on my shelves or give it another go, and that was Girl Stolen. It was about a girl who had pneumonia and is blind, and she's kidnapped from the back of her mom's car in the middle of a Walgreens parking lot, and then she gets taken out into the middle of nowhere, and there is a young boy who is involved with his dad in these criminal acts that he's involved in, and she kind of learns to trust him and wants to get him out. And I don't know, I don't like that trope of like people falling in love with their captor, like the whole Stockholm syndrome thing. I don't like it, and it really wasn't like she was falling in love with him, but they kind of allude to it a couple times. It was just weird. I wasn't like a big fan. The fact that she was blind kind of played up because you couldn't really figure out why they were keeping her if she didn't know like their face, but I don't know. I was just underwhelmed with it, so I gave that one a 2.5 out of 5. So that is all the books I read in September. Let's talk October. October I did do Spookathon, so there are quite a few books in here that had to do with that, but the first one I read before Spookathon started was Dead is Just a Dream, which is the very end of the Dead is series, and it's very short, as you can see. It was nice to have a book in an 8-book series like this that was really small, and it brought back the original characters from the first 4 or 5 books, I think it's 5 books, and wrap their stories up, put it in a nice little bow. This one was all about, I think, dreams. Like, people were having nightmares, and there were clowns, and there was like horses. It was like a lot of I think Mexican folklore in this one. So this one was really good, and I mean, real short. I think it was under 170 pages. Yeah, it was 166 pages, so it's a great little read. Actually, this whole series is a quick read because it is a middle grade, but this one was a great ending. I was so happy with the way it all wrapped up, and I gave this a 5 out of 5 as well. Then we have my books from Spookathon. I did a whole Spookathon TBR, and this was the first book. This was the thriller challenge, and I read this in a day. So this is The Drowning. It's all about a guy who is basically responsible for a little boy's disappearance when he is a camp counselor and grows up to be this big CEO. And he ends up getting blackmailed because someone knows what he did. And it's very much, I know what you did last summer sort of thing. And you think you know who it is, but I promise you, you're wrong. So it was a great book. I really didn't expect to read it in a day, but I'm happy I did because I just was flipping, and I had had this backlisted for so long, and I don't know if I said or not, but this was a 5 out of 5. When I read it, I also don't have anymore. I unhauled it. I gave both Girls Stolen and The Girl Who Was Supposed to Die to my cousin because I think they're more her age range. I think they're like middle grades. Yeah, this one was another kidnapping sort of situation. I don't even remember like a lot about this book, but I read it for Spookathon for the red cover challenge. I really don't remember. Like, it was basically like reading Girls Stolen all over again, but just slightly different. I don't remember what happened in that book, so it couldn't have been that good. I gave it a 4 out of 5 though on like my notes, so I don't remember, and I apologize, like I don't even remember the synopsis, so maybe 4 out of 5 was a little strong. Oops. Oh well. The next book for Spookathon that I read is half of this Hocus Pocus bind-up. I read the original Hocus Pocus. This was my spooky setting and spooky word challenge. Obviously, it's just the movie. Like, this whole book was just the movie, so I gave it 5 out of 5 because I love Hocus Pocus. The only thing that was, obviously, it's like a little different than the movie because it's about, like, it draws things out kind of and really has to explain them. But if you've never watched the movie and you're more a book person, it's great. And if you have watched the movie, it's also great because it's just like you're watching it all over again. Now, I haven't read the sequel, so I will get to that at some point because they're both in here. But just for readathon's sake and being quick with it, I just read the first one. So, 5 out of 5. So the last book I read, it was actually during Spookathon, but I was just done reading thrillers and creepy stuff, is Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. And I gave this a 5 out of 5. This is the first adult romance I've ever read, and it's a contemporary, and I loved it. I went on and on about this book in the haul and my TBR, or maybe it wasn't a TBR. I don't even think I put this on a TBR because I bought it and then I read it right away. I read it in a whole day, and I love it. I love Georgie. I think she's a very relatable character because sometimes characters who are supposed to be people who aren't taken very seriously and want to be taken seriously are very whiny and annoying, but the way that Tessa Bailey writes Georgie is you can tell she's strong, you can tell she's driven, that she has a plan, and people really just aren't taking her seriously because she's the baby of the family, but not for lack of trying. So I really like that, and obviously, like, I love Travis Ford in this book. Like, I love his character. I also really liked, and this is kind of a spoiler, but maybe if you're on the fence about reading it, it will make sense to you. There is no, like, typical rom-com scene in here where it's like, he screwed up, and then there's this long, drawn-out process of them getting back together or finding each other again or whatever. Like, there's some tension in here, but not to the point that you're like, I hate him, I hate him, I hate him. Like, you love him the whole way through. And it's just a great book, and the character development's so good, like, across the board, and I cannot wait for the sequel to this, which is, like, a companion novel. So, I'm ready. And that one's called Love Her or Lose Her, and I think it actually comes out January of 2020. On to November. The first book I read is Seafire, which is an all-female pirate crew going after this tyrant of the seas who is basically kidnapping children to build his crew up and get them addicted to this stuff called silt. And it's a drug, I guess, in the book, so trigger warnings on that. There's no like real gruesome sort of stuff. I just realized I didn't give you a star rating for Fixer Up. I have on my paper 11 out of 5. So there you go. But back to this, it's all about, what is her name? Why can't I think of it? Caledonia. And it's a really good story about just like companionship and female friendships, and I believe there's some LGBT representation in here. At least like I would say like bisexuality, like definitely in here. But it's great. It's the first book in a trilogy, and I'm very excited to get Steel Tide, which is the second one. It took me a minute to get really into it and really love the characters, but by midway point I loved it, and I was super upset with some of the characters that get killed off in this book, but it's so good, and there's so many worlds and different adventures that they go on. It's very piratey, but it's like steampunk, so it's a very different take. So I liked it. I gave it a 4 out of 5. The next one, I still have it on my shelves. It's just really hard to get down, so I'm not getting it right now, is Mara Tidebreaker. And I was so disappointed in this. I read this graphic novel in probably an hour, which it usually takes me a couple days to read a graphic novel just because I digest it, but I was so sad. It was such a surface level story with how Mara becomes involved with Aquaman and why she does, and like the title made me think that this was going to be about her really like standing up to people and doing what is right, but it so quickly went to a love story. I was super sad that it did. I really was hoping for like classic superhero, like the Bombshells, Harley Quinn, Wonder Woman, the type of stuff I normally read, but it was just so base level. Like there wasn't a lot of in-depth development. Things happened way too quickly. I was just not impressed. So I gave it a 2 out of 5, but I'm going to keep it on my shelves because I do love superheroes and graphic novels. So I'll keep it and maybe read it when I need something to get me out of a reading slump. The next book I read was actually for Buzzwordathon, and it is Tell Me 3 Things, which is a contemporary about a girl who moves to Los Angeles with her widowed father and her new stepmom and stepbrother. And she starts getting anonymous emails from someone that she's going to school with, telling her how to navigate their very catty, very cliquey Beverly Hills High School, all while working on a project with a guy that she is basically in love with. Like, she has a huge crush on him, and they are partners for a project. But she is trying to figure out who this anonymous person is, and are they talking to her as a friend, or are they trying to flirt with her, or are they trying to be something more? And also navigating a long-distance friendship with her best friend back home in Chicago. I did not have high expectations for this book, and I don't know why. I guess because I haven't heard people talk about it very much, or like I haven't really seen many reviews on this, but this is so good, especially when you figure out why the waffles are on the cover, which they do talk about in here a couple times. It was such a quick read. I think I read it in like 2 or 3 days. Some of it is written in like email form, so some of the chapters are legitimately just big lines of text. So it's a very quick read, but it's so good. Like, this was one where I was at work and I was like, I can't wait to get out of here so I can go home and read this book. Like, it was so good. I loved the characters. I really loved it. It was such a good book, and I'm happy I got it, and I will definitely get more of Julie Buxom's writing. And the book that I'm going to finish between today, tomorrow, and the 31st is Hunting Prince Dracula. Yes, I'm still reading it. I DNF'd it for September and October and ended up getting back to it this month, and I'm so happy I did because I am now like 200 and some pages in, and it's really ramping up. I am so happy I stuck with this series, and I would say it's gonna be a 4 out of 5. Unless the ending really blows me away in some way, which it might, who knows. It did with Jack the Ripper, So I'm hoping I can give it a 5 out of 5. But if I can't, it's a strong 4. You're following Audrey Rose and Thomas Cresswell in Romania, where there are people who are creating murders that look like vampire hunters and people who are creating murders that look like vampires are doing them. And it's in this big Romanian castle, and there's secret passages, and there's mystery, and there is also LGBT representation in that book. There is a girl, female-female relationship in there. Plus you get to meet a lot more of Thomas's family and find out more about him and why he's so mysterious. So it's a great book so far. So that is it for my fall wrap up. I hope you guys had a lucrative and productive fall reading season, and I will see you guys in the next one.